The stars looked peaceful through the observation deck of the UES Harmony. Commander Ji-won Park stood with his hands behind his back, watching the distant light of the Kepler station grow larger as they approached. His brown uniform was clean and pressed, the golden bars on his collar reflecting the soft glow from the control panels around him. "Sir, we should reach the station in about 2 hours," said Lieutenant Hana Lee from her position at the communications console. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic display, checking and rechecking their arrival time. She was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes that showed her excitement about this mission. Ji-won nodded and turned to look at his tactical officer. "Min-soo, how are our systems looking?" Min-soo Kim looked up from his station near the weapons. Controls. He was older than Hana, with gray starting to show in his black hair. "All green, Commander. Shields are running at full power. Weapons are online but safely locked down as ordered. We are ready for a peaceful diplomatic meeting." This was supposed to be simple. The human colonies on the outer edge of known space had been having small problems with mining rights. Some alien species, called the Valerians, claimed that humans were taking resources from planets that belonged to them. The Earth government had sent Ji-won and his small crew to talk things through and find a solution that worked for everyone. Ji-won had done missions like this before. He was good at talking to different species, finding ways to make everyone happy. His crew was small but skilled. Besides Hana and Min-soo, he had 12 other people on board. Engineers, pilots, a doctor, and a few security officers. Not a military ship, just a diplomatic vessel with enough protection to keep them safe in deep space. "Commander," Hana called out, her voice suddenly worried. "I am picking up multiple ships on long-range sensors. They are coming toward us fast." Ji-won moved quickly to her station. The screen showed at least 15 red dots moving in their direction. The ships were big, much bigger than the Harmony. "Can you identify them?" "Working on it, sir." Hana's fingers flew over her controls. After a few seconds, her face went pale. "Sir, they are Valerian Imperial Navy vessels, battle cruisers and destroyer-class ships." Min-soo stood up from his station. "Commander, those are not negotiation ships. Those are warships." Ji-won felt his stomach drop. This was not supposed to happen. The meeting was arranged through proper diplomatic channels. The Valerians had agreed to talk. Why were they sending military ships? "Hana, try to contact them. Send our diplomatic identification codes and remind them that we are here for the scheduled peace talks." "Yes, sir." Hana worked at her station for almost a minute before shaking her head. "No response, Commander. They are not answering any of our calls." The bridge around them started to feel smaller as the enemy ships got closer. Ji-won could see them now through the main viewing screen. The Valerian ships looked like giant crystals floating through space. Their hulls were made of some kind of translucent material that glowed with internal light, beautiful but deadly. "Sir, they are targeting us," Min-soo reported. His voice was steady, but Ji-won could hear the tension. "Multiple weapon locks from different ships. Raise shields. All hands to battle stations." Ji-won pressed the communication button that would reach every part of his ship. "This is the commander. We are about to come under attack. All personnel to emergency positions. This is not a drill." The lights on the bridge changed from soft white to red emergency lighting. Throughout the ship, Ji-won could hear the sound of his crew running to their positions, preparing for a fight they had never expected. "Incoming transmission," Hana announced. "Put it on screen." The viewing screen changed to show the face of a Valerian officer. The alien looked like a cross between a human and an insect. Its skin was hard and shiny like crystal, with 4 arms instead of 2. Large compound eyes reflected the light from its own ship's bridge. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding stone. "Human vessel, you are under arrest for crimes against the Valerian Empire. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." Ji-Wan stepped forward. "This is Commander Ji-Wan Park of the Earth Diplomatic Service. We are here for scheduled peace negotiations. There must be some mistake." "There is no mistake, human. You and your crew are terrorists and war criminals. You have attacked our mining colonies and killed innocent Valyrian citizens. Surrender. Now." "That is completely false. We have never attacked anyone. Check your records. We are diplomats, not soldiers." The Valyrian officer's compound eyes seemed to glow brighter. "You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. If you resist, you will be destroyed." Ji-Wan looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for orders. They all knew that the Harmony was not built for fighting. Against one Valyrian ship, they might have a chance. Against 15, they had no hope at all. But something was very wrong here. The accusations made no sense. Humans had never attacked Valyrian colonies. This felt like a setup, like someone wanted to start a war. "Sir," Minsu said quietly. "Orders?" Ji-Wan closed his eyes for a moment. If he surrendered, maybe he could figure out what was really happening. Maybe he could protect his crew. If he fought, they would all die in the next few minutes. "Power down." "Weapons," he said finally. "Drop shields. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them what happened here." "Message sent, sir," Hana reported. The Valyrian ships surrounded the Harmony like sharks around a wounded fish. Boarding tubes extended from the nearest cruiser and attached to their hull with loud metallic sounds. Within minutes, Valyrian soldiers were cutting through their airlock. The aliens were even more frightening in person. They stood 8 feet tall in their crystal armor, carrying weapons that hummed with energy. Their movements were quick and precise, like deadly dancers. Ji-Wan ordered his crew not to resist. They were taken prisoner quickly and efficiently, but as the Valyrian commander walked onto his bridge, Ji-Wan saw something that made his blood run cold. The alien was smiling, showing sharp teeth that glowed with inner light. This had been planned. The peace talks were a trap. As energy shackles were placed around his wrists, burning his skin with each heartbeat, Ji-Wan watched his crew being led away. He tried to memorize each face, knowing he might never see them again. The last thing he saw as they dragged him from his ship was the Earth flag hanging in the corridor outside his quarters. Soon he would be taken far from home, to face charges he knew were lies, before aliens who already considered him guilty. But Ji-Wan Park was not ready to give up. Not yet. Part 2. The throne room bound in energy shackles that burn his wrists, Ji-Wan is dragged through the magnificent crystalline palace. Valyrian guards tower over him with their 8-foot frames, their chittering language filled with mockery. The throne room stretches vast and imposing, filled with bioluminescent coral-like structures that pulse with alien light. Queen Lyrazeth sits upon her throne of living crystal, her forearms gesturing dismissively as various alien diplomats present tributes and petitions. Her silver exoskeleton gleams with authority, and her large compound eyes show nothing but cold calculation. The herald announces Ji-Wan as a terrorist and war criminal responsible for attacking Valyrian mining colonies. The crowd of alien nobility jeers and demands immediate execution. Ji-Wan knows the charges are fabricated. His mission was purely diplomatic. As he's forced to his knees, Ji-Wan prepares to speak in his own defense, knowing it may be futile. Part 3. Recognition. When Ji-Wan begins to speak, something extraordinary happens. His voice carries clearly through the vast chamber, and Queen Lyrazeth suddenly freezes. Her 4 arms grip the edges of her throne as her head tilts, compound eyes widening. The crowd falls silent as the queen slowly rises from her throne, an unprecedented gesture that sends shockwaves through the assembly. In Valyrian culture, the monarch never stands for anyone except the most honored allies. "That voice," she whispers in perfect standard galactic, her usual commanding tone replaced by something softer. I know that voice. Flashback reveals that 15 years ago, during a massive solar storm that disabled communications across 3 systems, a young Valerian princess was stranded on a dead world after her scout ship crashed. For 3 days, she received transmissions from an unknown human communications officer who guided her to safety, teaching her human songs to keep her spirits up and sharing stories of Earth to distract her from her injuries. She never learned his name, but she never forgot his voice or his kindness when he had no obligation to help an alien. Part 4. The Revelation Queen. Lyra Zeth descends from her throne, approaching G1 directly, another unprecedented breach of protocol that has the court in chaos. She kneels to his level, studying his face with recognition dawning in her alien features. "You taught me a song," she says quietly, "about a blue world with green seas and white clouds. You told me about your sister Su-Yung who loved to paint sunsets." Ji-won's eyes widen as the memory floods back. He had been a young communications officer on a monitoring station, picking up a distress signal from what he thought was a human ship. When he realized it was an alien, regulations said to report it to command. Instead, he spent 3 days helping guide the injured pilot to rescue. The Queen commands his shackles removed immediately. The journey to Valus Prime took 3 days. G1 spent those days in a small crystal cell aboard the Valerian flagship. The walls glowed with soft blue light that never dimmed, making it impossible to tell day from night. His energy shackles had been replaced with metal ones that were cold against his skin, but did not burn. During the long hours, Ji-won tried to understand what had happened. The accusations against him made no sense. He had never been to the outer colonies where the attack supposedly took place. His ship's logs would prove that, but he doubted the Valerians cared about evidence. Through the small window in his cell, he could see other ships in their fleet. Dozens of crystal vessels moving through hyperspace like a school of glowing fish. This was not just a patrol group, this was an invasion force. On the 3rd day, a Valerian guard came to his cell. The alien was smaller than the soldiers who had captured him, with lighter-colored crystal skin that showed more blue than gray. "Human, you will prepare yourself. We arrive at the capital soon. You will face judgment before Queen Lyra Zeth." Ji-won had heard of the Valerian Queen. She had ruled the Empire for over 30 years, expanding their territory through conquest and fear. Most species in this part of the galaxy paid tribute to avoid her wrath. Humans were too new to space travel to be on her radar until now. "What happened to my crew?" Ji-won asked. The guard's compound eyes focused on him with what might have been surprise. "You care about the fate of your subordinates?" "Of course I do. They are my responsibility." "Interesting. Most species abandon their weak when captured." The guard made a sound that could have been laughter. "Your crew lives, for now. The Queen will decide their fate after your trial." A few hours later, the ship dropped out of hyperspace. Through his window, Ji-won saw Valus Prime for the first time. The planet looked like a giant jewel floating in space. Its surface was covered with crystal cities that caught and reflected starlight, creating patterns of color that shifted and changed as the planet rotated. The flagship landed at what was clearly the main spaceport. Thousands of ships of different sizes and designs filled the landing bays. Ji-won recognized some human vessels among them, probably traders who had been captured or forced to pay tribute. 2 guards came for him. They were different from the ship's security, wearing ceremonial armor that was polished to mirror brightness. Their weapons were works of art, as much as tools of war, decorated with carved patterns that told stories Ji-won could not read. They led him through corridors that were more like caves made of living crystal. The walls pulsed with gentle light that seemed to respond to the aliens walking past. Other Valerians stopped to stare at Ji-won as they passed. Some looked curious, others showed clear hatred. A few seemed almost amused, as if they were watching entertainment. The palace was even more impressive than the spaceport. Ji-won had seen pictures of great buildings on Earth, but nothing compared to this. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into glowing mist. Pillars of pure crystal reached up like frozen trees, each one carved with intricate details that hurt his eyes to look at directly. The throne room was the size of a city square. Hundreds of aliens filled the space, not just Valerians, but species from across the galaxy. Some Ji-won recognized from diplomatic briefings. Others were completely unknown to him. All of them were here to witness his trial. The throne itself sat at the far end of the room, reached by a long walkway that seemed designed to make anyone approaching feel small and helpless. It was carved from a single piece of black crystal that absorbed light instead of reflecting it, making it look like a hole in reality. Queen Lyraseth sat perfectly still on her throne, watching as Ji-won was led forward. She was larger than the other Valerians he had seen, her forearms resting on the arms of her throne with casual authority. Her crystal skin was pure silver, polished to perfection. Most intimidating were her eyes, compound like all her species, but somehow more focused, more intelligent than the others. The guards forced Ji-won to his knees at the base of the throne. The walkway was made of rough crystal that cut through his uniform pants, but he tried not to show pain. Around him, the crowd of aliens whispered in dozens of languages. A Valerian herald stepped forward, his voice amplified somehow to reach every corner of the massive room. Before Queen Lyraseth, ruler of the Crystal Empire, conqueror of 12 star systems, protector of the Valerian people, we present the human criminal, Ji-won Park. He stands accused of terrorism, murder, and crimes against the Empire. The crowd's whispers turned to angry shouts. Some aliens called for immediate execution. Others suggested various forms of torture. Ji-won kept his eyes on the queen, trying to read her expression. The accused human, the herald continued, led attacks on peaceful mining colonies in the Outer Rim. 17 Valerian citizens were killed. 3 entire mining stations were destroyed. The damage to Imperial property totals over 1 billion. Credits. Ji-won wanted to shout that it was all lies, but he forced himself to stay quiet. Getting angry would only make things worse. Queen Lyraseth raised one of her 4 hands, and the room fell silent instantly. When she spoke, her voice was clear and cold, carrying easily through the vast space without amplification. Human, you have heard the charges against you. What do you say in your defense? This was his chance, maybe his only chance. Ji-won took a deep breath and prepared to speak, knowing that his words might determine not just his fate, but the fate of his crew and possibly his entire species. The energy shackles around his wrists seemed to grow heavier as hundreds of hostile, alien eyes focused on him, waiting to hear what the human terrorist would say before his execution. Ji-won lifted his head and looked directly at Queen Lyraseth. Her compound eyes were like mirrors, reflecting the light from the crystal pillars around them. He had faced difficult negotiations before, but never while kneeling in chains before someone who could end his life with a single word. "Your Majesty," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the silent throne room. "I am Commander Ji-won Park of the Earth Diplomatic Service. I came here in peace, hoping to resolve the mining disputes through negotiation. I have never attacked your people. I have never even been to the colonies where these crimes supposedly took place." The crowd erupted in angry shouts. Some aliens screamed for his immediate death. Others called him a liar. But Ji-won kept his eyes on the queen, watching for any sign of what she was thinking. "My ship's computer logs will prove that we were nowhere near those colonies when the attacks happened. We were on Earth, attending diplomatic training." Check. "Your own intelligence reports. Verify the timeline. You will see that I am telling the truth." Queen Lyraseth tilted her head slightly, studying him with those strange, compound eyes. Something flickered across her face, too quick to identify. Furthermore, Jiwan continued, I request to know who provided this evidence against me. In any fair legal system, the accused has the right to face their accusers. Who claims to have witnessed these attacks? What proof do they offer besides their word? The herald stepped forward, clearly angry that a prisoner was making demands. You are in no position to request anything, human. You will accept the judgment of the Empire and be grateful if your death is quick. But Queen Lyraseth raised her hand again, stopping the herald mid-sentence. She leaned forward slightly on her throne, her silver crystal skin catching the light in new patterns. Continue speaking, human, she said quietly. There was something different in her tone now. Not the cold authority from before, but something else. Curiosity, maybe, or confusion. Jiwan decided to take the risk and keep talking. My species may be new to this part of space, but we are not terrorists. We explore, we trade, we try to learn from other civilizations. Yes, there are bad humans just like there are bad members of every species. But I am not one of them. Neither is my crew. As he spoke, Jiwan noticed that Queen Lyraseth was sitting very still. Her four hands gripped the arms of her throne tightly, and her head was tilted as if she was listening to something only she could hear. I have spent my career trying to build bridges between species. I believe that different peoples can work together, can solve problems through communication instead of violence. That is why I am here. Not to conquer or destroy, but to find a path to peace. The words came from his heart, not from any diplomatic training. Jiwan thought about Hana and Minsu, probably locked in cells somewhere in this crystal palace. He thought about his sister Su-Yung back on Earth, who painted pictures of alien worlds she had never seen because she believed the universe was full of beauty waiting to be discovered. I know what it is like to help someone when you have no reason to do so, Jiwan continued. I know what it feels like to stay awake for days, talking to a stranger just to keep them alive. I know how it feels to care about someone you have never met, just because they need help and you are the only one who can provide it. Queen Lyraseth suddenly went very still. Her compound eyes widened, and all four of her hands began to tremble slightly. Around the throne room, other aliens noticed the change in their ruler and fell silent, confused by her reaction. I have learned songs from other worlds, Jiwan said, his voice growing stronger. I have shared stories of my home with people who will never see it. I have spent long nights on communication duty, talking to anyone who needed a friendly voice in the darkness of space. The Queen's breathing changed. She was staring at Jiwan now with an intensity that made the air in the room feel charged with electricity. 15 years ago, I was working communication watch on a monitoring station near the Kepler Nebula. I picked up a distress signal from a crashed ship on a dead world. The pilot was badly injured, scared, running out of supplies. Regulations said I should report it to my superiors and let them handle it. But the pilot sounded so young, so afraid. I could not just abandon them to die alone. Queen Lyraseth made a small sound, barely audible but somehow carrying through the silent throne room. Her silver skin had taken on a different quality, as if light was moving beneath the surface. For 3 days, I stayed at my station. I guided that pilot through medical procedures using their ship's emergency kit. I helped them find water and food in the wreckage. When they were too scared to sleep, I told them stories about Earth, about blue skies and green forests, about my sister who painted sunsets. The Queen slowly began to rise from her throne. The movement sent a shock through the assembled crowd. In Valyrian culture, the monarch never stood for anyone except the most honored allies or family members. Murmurs of confusion and surprise rippled through the throne room. I taught that pilot a song, Jiwan said, his voice now barely above a whisper but somehow carrying to every corner of the vast space. A simple human song about hope, about how even in the darkest night, morning always comes. I sang it with them when rescue finally arrived. Queen Lyrisseth was standing now, all 8 feet of her crystal-armored form trembling with emotion that no one in the room could understand. Her compound eyes reflected the light like mirrors full of stars. I never learned that pilot's name, Jiwan finished. They never learned mine. But for 3 days, we were not human and alien. We were just 2 people, helping each other survive. The throne room was absolutely silent. Even the soft humming of the crystal architecture seemed to have stopped. Queen Lyrisseth took a step down from her throne, then another, moving toward Jiwan with the careful grace of someone walking through a dream they were afraid to wake from. Queen Lyrisseth continued down the steps of her throne, each footstep echoing through the vast chamber like thunder. The assembled aliens watched in complete shock. Some had served in the royal court for decades and had never seen their queen leave her throne during a formal audience. When she reached the bottom of the steps, the queen knelt down beside Jiwan, bringing her face level with his. This close, he could see that her compound eyes were not just reflecting light. They were producing it. Soft silver radiance flowed from within, creating patterns that shifted like liquid mercury. "You taught me about a blue world," she said softly. Her voice meant only for him, but carrying in the perfect acoustics of the crystal chamber. "You told me about oceans that stretch to the horizon and mountains that touch the clouds. You described snow that falls like tiny stars and deserts that bloom with flowers after rain." Jiwan's eyes widened as the memory came flooding back. 15 years ago, he had been a young communications officer, barely out of training. He was working the night shift at Monitoring Station Delta 7, a lonely outpost on the edge of human space. Most nights were quiet, filled with routine traffic reports and scheduled check-ins. But that night had been different. A weak distress signal had come through the background static, speaking in accented Standard Galactic. The voice belonged to someone young, someone scared, someone dying alone on a world where no help should come. "You stayed with me," Queen Lyrisseth continued, her 4 hands reaching out to touch the shackles around his wrists. "For 3 days and 3 nights, you never left your station. When I was in pain, you talked to me about your sister Suyong and her paintings. When I was afraid, you sang to me about hope and morning light." The metal shackles fell away from Jiwan's wrists with soft clicking sounds. Around the throne room, hundreds of aliens began to murmur in confusion and amazement. Their queen was personally freeing a prisoner accused of terrorism. "I remember," Jiwan whispered. "You said your ship had crashed in a solar storm. Your communications were damaged, and you only had emergency power. You were hurt, and your rescue beacon was not working." "I was Princess Lyrisseth then," the queen said, helping him stand up. "Young and foolish, flying a scout ship alone when I should have taken an escort. The storm disabled every system except basic communications. I crashed on a dead world called Zarian 4, in the middle of nowhere." As she spoke, the queen's voice grew stronger, addressing not just Jiwan but the entire court. "This human had no reason to help me. I was an alien, a stranger, someone from a species he had probably never encountered before. His regulations likely told him to report my signal and let his superiors handle it." The court listened in stunned silence as their powerful queen revealed a story none of them had ever heard. But Commander Jiwan Park did not follow regulations. He talked to me for hours, keeping me conscious when I wanted to give up. He guided me through medical procedures using my ship's emergency supplies. When infection set in, he researched treatment, methods in his database, and walked me through each step. Queen Lyrisseth turned to face her court, her silver skin now blazing with internal light. "On the 2nd day, when I was delirious with fever, he told me stories. He described Earth's seasons, the way autumn leaves change color, how snow feels cold and clean on your face. He talked about his family, his dreams, his hopes for the future." The crowd was absolutely silent now. Even the guards had stopped moving, frozen by the impossibility of what they were witnessing. On the third night, when my fear was strongest, when I thought I would die alone in the darkness, he sang to me, a human song about dawn breaking after the longest night, about how hope survives even when everything else fails. His voice was the last thing I heard before rescue ships found me. The Queen reached into a hidden pocket in her ceremonial robes and pulled out a small device, no bigger than her palm. It was clearly human technology, old and worn but carefully maintained. "I kept this," she said, holding up the device. "A recording of those 3 days, of every conversation, every story, every song. I have listened to it countless times over. The years, especially when the burdens of leadership felt too heavy to bear." She activated the device, and suddenly Jiwan's voice from 15 years ago filled the throne room. Younger, more nervous, but unmistakably his. "Hey there, unknown pilot. This is Monitoring Station Delta 7. I am still here with you. How are you feeling? Did the medication help with the pain?" The recorded voice of a young Valerian female answered, weak but grateful. "Better, thank you. You said you would tell me about your sister's paintings. Could you do that now? It helps me forget about being scared." Queen Lyraseth shut off the recording and looked around her court with blazing eyes. "This human saved my life when he had no obligation to do so. He showed kindness to a stranger from another world, asking nothing in return. And now he stands accused of crimes against my people." She turned to face the herald who had read the charges. "Bring me War Chancellor Vexstar immediately. I want to know exactly how these accusations were prepared and who provided the evidence." The herald bowed deeply and hurried away, clearly terrified by the Queen's sudden anger. "Commander Park," the Queen said, turning back to Jiwon, "please forgive the actions of my empire. You have been falsely accused, and I intend to find out why." Jiwon was still processing everything that had happened. The scared voice in his memory was now the most powerful ruler in 3-star systems. The young pilot he had helped was the Queen who could order his execution without a second thought. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "I am honored that you remember our conversations, but even if you pardon me, what about my crew? What about the real attackers who destroyed your colonies? Justice still needs to be served." Queen Lyraseth smiled, an expression that transformed her entire face. "This is why I knew your voice, Jiwon Park. Even when facing death, you worry about others first. You seek justice, not just mercy. You are exactly the same person who stayed awake for 3 days to save a stranger." The massive doors at the back of the throne room burst open, and the herald returned with War Chancellor Vexstar. The Chancellor was an older Valerian, his crystal skin darker with age, his movements slower but still carrying authority, until he saw Queen Lyraseth standing beside the human prisoner with his shackles removed. Then his compound eyes went wide with something that looked very much like fear. War Chancellor Vexstar approached the throne with careful steps, his crystal armor clicking softly against the floor. He was trying to maintain his usual confidence, but Jiwon could see the nervousness in the way his 4 arms moved. The Chancellor had clearly not expected to find the Queen standing beside a prisoner who should have been executed by now. "Your Majesty," Vexstar said, bowing low, "I came as quickly as possible. Is there some problem with the human terrorist's trial?" Queen Lyraseth's compound eyes focused on the Chancellor with laser intensity. "Yes, Vexstar. There is a very large problem. This human is not a terrorist. The charges against him are completely false." The Chancellor's head snapped up in surprise. "My Queen, I do not understand. The evidence is clear. Multiple witnesses saw human ships attacking our colonies. The wreckage contained human technology. The identification codes matched ships from their diplomatic fleet." "Show me this evidence," the Queen commanded. Vexstar activated a holographic projector built into his armor. Images appeared in the air above them, showing destroyed mining stations and burned colony buildings. The destruction was real and terrible. Jiwan felt sick seeing the damage, even though he knew he had nothing to do with it. Here are the attack recordings, Vexstar continued. Ships with human markings, using human weapons. 17 of our people died in these attacks. Queen Lyraseth studied the images carefully. Her expression grew darker with each scene of destruction, but then she pointed to something in the corner of one recording. Freeze the image there, she ordered. Enhance that section. The hologram zoomed in on what looked like part of a ship's hull. At first, Jiwan could not see what had caught the Queen's attention. Then his training kicked in, and he spotted it too. Those are not human ship markings, he said. The symbols are similar, but the construction is wrong. Human ships use welded joints in that section. These ships show crystal fusion patterns. The Queen nodded approvingly. Exactly. These are Valyrian ships modified to look human. Chancellor Vexstar, how did you not notice this obvious deception? The Chancellor's crystal skin began to take on a darker hue, a sign of stress in Valyrian physiology. My Queen, our analysis teams examined the evidence thoroughly. Perhaps the human is lying to save himself. Am I lying too? Queen Lyraseth asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Because I can see the same construction flaws he can. These are our ships, Vexstar. Someone in our own empire attacked our colonies and made it look like humans did it. The throne room erupted in whispers as the implications sank in. If the Queen was right, then someone had committed treason of the highest order. Not only had they killed innocent Valyrians, they had tried to start a war with an innocent species. Queen Lyraseth raised her hand for silence. Bring me intelligence, Commander Kael'ren. Now. Within minutes, a younger Valyrian officer appeared. Unlike the Chancellor, Kael'ren moved with quick efficiency and showed no signs of nervousness. His crystal skin was pale blue, indicating high intelligence and analytical thinking. Kael'ren, the Queen said, I want you to reanalyze all evidence from the colony attacks. Look specifically for signs that our own technology was used. Check ship construction patterns, weapon signatures, everything. Yes, Your Majesty. How long do I have? 1 hour. Kael'ren bowed and hurried away, already speaking into his communication device to summon his analysis teams. The Queen turned back to Chancellor Vexstar, who was now clearly sweating despite the cool temperature of the throne room. While we wait for that analysis, the Queen said, let me ask you some questions, Chancellor. Who first brought you the evidence against Commander Park? Who suggested that humans were responsible for the attacks? Vexstar's 4 hands twisted together nervously. The evidence came through normal intelligence channels, Your Majesty. Multiple sources confirmed the human involvement. I want names, Vexstar. Specifically, I want to know who stood to gain from a war with humanity. Before the Chancellor could answer, Kael'ren returned. His pale blue skin was now almost white with excitement, and he carried several holographic projectors. Your Majesty, he said breathlessly, the evidence has been completely fabricated. The ships that attacked our colonies were modified Valyrian vessels using stolen human identification codes. The weapons were our own crystal disruptors set to mimic human energy signatures. Even the wreckage was staged. He activated his projectors, showing detailed analysis of the attack evidence. Furthermore, I found communication records showing that someone with high-level access has been selling our military secrets to smugglers and pirates. The same person has been manipulating intelligence reports for months. Queen Lyraseth turned slowly to face Chancellor Vexstar. The older alien had gone completely still, his compound eyes reflecting light in patterns that suggested extreme stress. Vexstar, the Queen said quietly, you will now explain to me why you have been trying to start a war with humanity? The Chancellor looked around the throne room desperately, as if searching for an escape route, but hundreds of aliens surrounded him and royal guards were already moving closer. I served this empire for 40 years, Vexstar said finally. I fought in the expansion wars. I conquered 3 star systems for your father. And what did I get for my service? Pushed aside for younger officers? Ignored when I warned about human expansion into our territory? His voice grew stronger, fueled by years of resentment. Humans are weak, my queen. They have no right to the resources of space. Better to crush them now while they are still small, before they become a real threat. So you murdered our own people to justify a war, Queen, Lyraseth said. You betrayed everything this empire stands for. I saved this empire, Vextar shouted. In 10 years, humans will be everywhere. They breed like insects and spread across every world they can reach. War was inevitable. I just chose the timing. Queen Lyraseth looked at the Chancellor with disgust. Guards, arrest War Chancellor Vextar for treason, murder, and crimes against the Empire. He will face the full punishment of Valerian law. As the guards dragged the struggling Chancellor away, the Queen turned to address her court. Let this be a lesson to all. Prejudice and fear make us do terrible things. This human, she gestured to Ji-Wan, saved my life 15 years ago. Today, his wisdom helped us uncover treason in our own ranks. She faced Ji-Wan directly. Commander, Park, on behalf of the Valerian Empire, I apologize for the crimes committed against you and your crew. Your people will be released immediately and given safe passage home. Thank you, Your Majesty, Ji-Wan said. But I have a request. My mission was to establish peaceful relations between our species. Despite everything that has happened, I would still like to try. The Queen smiled, an expression that lit up her entire face. Commander Ji-Wan Park, I would be honored to discuss an alliance between our peoples. Perhaps you would consider staying as Earth's first ambassador to the Valerian Empire. Around the throne room, aliens who had called for his execution, an hour ago now, bowed respectfully. Ji-Wan thought about his crew, probably confused and scared in their cells. He thought about his sister Su-Yung, who would never believe this story when he told it. Most of all, he thought about how a single act of kindness 15 years ago had just prevented a war and opened the door to friendship between two worlds. Your Majesty, he said, I would be honored to serve as ambassador. But first, I really need to check on my crew. They are probably wondering what happened to me. 2 weeks later, Ji-Wan stood on the observation deck of his new quarters in the Valerian Palace, watching human and Valerian ships work together in the space above the capital world. His crew had been released within hours of his trial, confused, but unharmed. They were now living in guest quarters, while preparing for their new roles as the first human diplomatic mission to the Valerian Empire. The door chimed softly, and Hana Lee entered carrying a communication tablet. Her young face was bright with excitement, as it had been since learning they would be staying to help establish peaceful relations between their species. Commander, she said, we just received a message from Earth Command. Captain Hyunwoo Choi is leading a fleet of 12 ships here. They should arrive tomorrow. Ji-Wan smiled. Hyunwoo had been his roommate at the academy and one of his closest friends. When news of the diplomatic mission's capture reached Earth, Hyunwoo had volunteered to lead the rescue operation. He was probably expecting to find a war zone, not a celebration. Any word from my sister? Ji-Wan asked. Yes, sir. Su-Yung sent a personal message. She says she is painting a mural of the alliance ceremony for the lobby of the diplomatic corps building. She also says she never doubted you would find a way to make friends with aliens who could have killed you. That sounded exactly like something Su-Yung would say. His sister had always believed that art and kindness could overcome any barrier between people, even when those people were from different worlds. Min-Soo Kim appeared in the doorway, looking more relaxed than Ji-Won had seen him in years. The older officer had taken to Valerian culture surprisingly well, spending hours discussing military history with former enemies who were now becoming friends. Sir, Min-Soo reported, Queen Lyraseth has requested your presence in the treaty room. The final documents are ready for signature. The treaty room was smaller than the throne room, but somehow more intimate. The walls were made of clear crystal that showed the stars beyond. making it feel like they were floating in space itself. Queen Lyraseth stood beside a table made of black crystal, reviewing holographic documents that floated in the air above. She had changed since the trial. The cold authority was still there when dealing with official business, but around Jiwon and his crew, she showed warmth that her people had rarely seen from their ruler. "Commander," she said as he entered, "the alliance treaty is complete. When your Captain Choi arrives tomorrow, we can make it official." Jiwon studied the floating text, impressed by how comprehensive it was. Trade agreements, mutual defense, pacts, technology sharing, cultural exchange programs. It was everything he had hoped to achieve when he first set out on his diplomatic mission. "There is one section I wanted to discuss with you privately," the Queen said, gesturing for him to sit beside her. "The cultural exchange program includes provisions for extended visits between our worlds. Some of my people are interested in seeing Earth, learning about human art and music." "That sounds wonderful," Jiwon said. "I know my sister would love to show Valyrian artists how humans paint, and I think your people would enjoy our music." Queen Lyraseth activated another holographic display, this one showing what looked like architectural plans. "I have also been thinking about establishing a permanent embassy here, a place where humans and Valyrians can work together, learn from each other." The plan showed a beautiful building that combined human and Valyrian design elements. Curved walls of living crystal surrounded courtyards filled with plants from both worlds. Meeting rooms where diplomats could work together, cultural centers where artists could collaborate, even residential areas for long-term visitors. "It would be located in the palace complex," the Queen continued, "so that the ambassador would have direct access to the royal court when needed." She paused, her compound eyes reflecting starlight from the crystal walls. "I was hoping that ambassador would be you, Jiwon." He had been expecting this offer, but it still made him pause. Accepting would mean leaving Earth, probably for years. It would mean building something completely new, bridging two civilizations that had almost gone to war because of one alien's prejudice and fear. But it would also mean working with someone who understood the value of kindness between strangers. Someone who had kept a recording of their conversations for 15 years, not as a curiosity but as a reminder of what was possible when people reached out to help each other. "I accept," Jiwon said, "but I have some conditions." Queen Lyraseth raised her head with interest. "Name them." "My sister Suyung comes with me. She wants to study alien art techniques, and I think she could help design the cultural exchange programs." "Agreed. My crew stays as long as they want to. They are the best people I know, and I will need good people to help build this embassy." "Of course." "And we establish a joint communications network. I want human and Valyrian operators working together, monitoring space for ships in distress, making sure that anyone who needs help can find it, regardless of what species they are." "Queen." Lyraseth was quiet for a long moment, and Jiwon wondered if he had pushed too hard. Then she smiled, the expression that transformed her entire face. "You know," she said softly, "I still have nightmares sometimes about being alone on that dead world. In my dreams, I call for help, and no one answers. The darkness gets deeper and colder until I wake up." I walked in shackled, but the alien. Queen stood up when she recognized my voice. Part 1, the capture. The stars looked peaceful through the observation deck of the UES Harmony. Commander Jiwon Park stood with his hands behind his back, watching the distant light of the Kepler station grow larger as they approached. His brown uniform was clean and pressed, the golden bars on his collar reflecting the soft glow from the control panels around him. "Sir, we should reach the station in about 2 hours," said Lieutenant Hannah Lee from her position at the communications console. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic display, checking and rechecking their arrival time. She was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes that showed her excitement about this mission. Jiwon nodded and turned to look at his tactical officer. "Minsu, how are our systems looking?" Minsu Kim looked up from his station near the weapons. Controls. He was older than Hana, with gray starting to show in his black hair. "All green, Commander. Shields are running at full power. Weapons are online but safely locked down as ordered. We are ready for a peaceful diplomatic meeting." This was supposed to be simple. The human colonies on the outer edge of known space had been having small problems with mining rights. Some alien species called the Valerians claimed that humans were taking resources from planets that belonged to them. The Earth government had sent Jiwon and his small crew to talk things through and find a solution that worked for everyone. Jiwon had done missions like this before. He was good at talking to different species, finding ways to make everyone happy. His crew was small but skilled. Besides Hana and Minsu, he had 12 other people on board. Engineers, pilots, a doctor, and a few security officers. Not a military ship, just a diplomatic vessel with enough protection to keep them safe in deep space. "Commander," Hana called out, her voice suddenly worried. "I am picking up multiple ships on long-range sensors. They are coming toward us fast." Jiwon moved quickly to her station. The screen showed at least 15 red dots moving in their direction. The ships were big, much bigger than the Harmony. "Can you identify them?" "Working on it, sir." Hana's fingers flew over her controls. After a few seconds, her face went pale. "Sir, they are Valerian Imperial Navy vessels, battle cruisers and destroyer-class ships." Minsu stood up from his station. "Commander, those are not negotiation ships. Those are warships." Jiwon felt his stomach drop. This was not supposed to happen. The meeting was arranged through proper diplomatic channels. The Valerians had agreed to talk. Why were they sending military ships? Hana, try to contact them. "Send our diplomatic identification codes and remind them that we are here for the scheduled peace talks." "Yes, sir." Hana worked at her station for almost a minute before shaking her head. "No response, Commander. They are not answering any of our calls." The bridge around them started to feel smaller as the enemy ships got closer. Jiwon could see them now through the main viewing screen. The Valerian ships looked like giant crystals floating through space. Their hulls were made of some kind of translucent material that glowed with internal light. Beautiful, but deadly. "Sir, they are targeting us," Minsu reported. His voice was steady, but Jiwon could hear the tension. "Multiple weapon locks from different ships. Raise shields. All hands to battle stations." Jiwon pressed the communication button that would reach every part of his ship. "This is the commander. We are about to come under attack. All personnel to emergency positions. This is not a drill." The lights on the bridge changed from soft white to red emergency lighting. Throughout the ship, Jiwon could hear the sound of his crew running to their positions, preparing for a fight they had never expected. "Incoming transmission," Hana announced. The viewing screen changed to show the face of a Valerian officer. The alien looked like a cross between a human and an insect. Its skin was hard and shiny like crystal, with 4 arms instead of 2. Large compound eyes reflected the light from its own ship's bridge. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding stone.